Hi, dear students. It's me, your Principal Director, School Education here. Hope you're enjoying your holidays, but actually it's not a holidays. Your schools are closed from March 16 and we are losing a lot of working days, as you know. So what we are planning to do, the department is planning to do is that the important subjects in class 8, 9, 10 and 12, we'll be giving you video lessons through our Doordarshan, and the same will be broadcasted in the All India Radio also. So our broadcast is starting today and your teachers will be taking the lessons for you. So what I will request you is that you take your textbooks and a notebook and note down the details. And we understand Nagaland is such a state where we have a lot of remote areas and some areas where you don't have the television in your houses. So we are written to all the deputy commissioners and with the help of the administrative officers, we request the village councils or even the ward councils to arrange a village council hall or some other hall in their vicinity so that these students can come and attend to the lessons. Now you will be having the confusion whether this will violate the social distancing or not. We will be taking the classes one by one only so that the students, they don't group up together and there is not a school-like atmosphere. So you have to keep proper social distancing wherever you are attending to the classes and attend to the classes very carefully, and this will go on till the end of this lockdown, till the time your schools reopen. So I wish you all the best. I hope to see you all soon. Attend to the classes very carefully. This is your Principal Director here. We wish you all the best. Thank you.
Welcome, my dear listeners, viewers, students, to this Doordarshan and radio tutoring from the Department of School Education, Kohima, Nagaland. I am your tutor, Ms. Atsinyo, and we will be talking about a lesson from Class 9 English. So today our topic is called the echoing green. I'm sure most of you are familiar with these two words. Maybe some of you have this green color as your favorite color, and maybe I'm sure you also know the word echo. This is something that I want you to take a good look at because this title of the poem is very important. Why is it important? Because we will find that the word echo means something that is being resonated, or we can say reflected back, repeating. So those words I want you to keep in mind, and later on we would be coming back to those words again and again so that you would be able to understand the theme of the poem clearer. But before we look into the poetry here, let's take a look at a little background of who the writer is. The writer here is William Blake, and he was born in 1757 and died in 1827. He was an English painter, poet, and printmaker. Blake is considered a seminal figure. If you want, you can underline that. I'm sure you have your textbooks ready with you, so you can underline it. Seminal here means that a person who is very influential. So he was very influential during the era, or we can say in this specific area, that is history of the poetry and visual arts of Romantic age. Now, I'm sure some of you are smiling to yourself when I say romantic age. We are not talking about that young age when people fall in love and those puppy crushes. We are not talking about that here. But I want you to remember that when we say romantic age, we mean people who are inspired by nature or nature-inspired work are belonging to the Romantic era. So, in fact, Romantic age is a literary era, and William Blake is a very famous person who contributed a lot to this era. His visual artistry led one contemporary art critic to proclaim him as far and away the greatest artist Britain has ever produced. In 2002, Blake was placed at number 38 in the BBC's poll of the 100 Greatest Britain. So that is how famous our author is. And this, I'm sure by now you are getting the picture in your mind that this person is a very creative fellow who is not only a writer but also a painter who does a lot of print works. In other words, people who draw things, especially when we say printmaker, we are talking about painting that has to do with on paper, actually. So he is very famous, and recently, just recently, that is 2002, when British Broadcasting Corporation has undertaken a survey, they found that William Blake is ranked among the 38 positions. So that is how famous he is. So now that we have taken a glimpse of who this author is, we are going to find out more about what does he write. And if you're interested, you can also look him up in your Google, your smartphones. But of course, not now. Don't go away now, because if you do that, you're going to miss this whole interesting session here with me. All right. So let's take a brief look at, very quickly, a brief look at the introduction of the poem here. And here, the first point we have here is significance of the poem's title. Remember, I told you the title is very important, The Echoing Green, and there is a great significance, in other words, great importance in this title itself. Why? Because as we continue, you will find that this line or this title is being repeated over and over again. And it is very significant. Why? Because it throws light on the theme of the poem. When we say theme, we're talking about the central idea of the poem here. So we will be able to get more ideas there. In fact, when you do your reading worksheet and all, and sometimes when we get a reading worksheet that has to do with poetry, sometimes we become really scared. And I want to tell you, don't get scared of poetry. In fact, it's very fun. So just the way we are doing here, you take a good look at the title and you will find that that gives you a clue to the whole content of the poem itself. So when you are doing your reading worksheet as well, you can also try that trick. All right. So like I said, the title is being repeated in all the stanzas, and I want to pose a question, why? And with that, when we read it out, I want you to remember why that is being repeated. Okay, so the word echo or echoing, like I said, that is something that has been resonating or repetitive cycle, repetitive action. It can also be a sound. Having those background in mind, let us also take a look at the new words here that we would be discovering. The word thrush. Thrush is actually a small bird. You will find in your textbook that this word is being highlighted, and those are the footnotes. So footnotes, you will find it at the bottom of your textbook. So it means here, small bird, care, which means worry, that is on your footnote 2, oak. And oak is a tree, a big tree in fact, which represents stability or maturity as well. The next word we have here, maybe some of you are familiar with it, but folk, F-O-L-K, it means people. Weary, tired. You'll find that in your footnote 3, so I'm sure you would have no problem understanding those. Now I'm going to read out the poem here, and I want you to listen and also follow your text. Look down into your text and follow it. The echoing green. The sun does arise and make happy the skies. The merry bells ring to welcome the spring. The skylark and thrush, the birds of the bush, sing louder around to the bells' cheerful sound, while our sports shall be seen on the echoing green. Old John with white hair does laugh away care, sitting under the oak among the old folk. They laugh at our play, and soon they all say, such were the joys when we all, girls and boys, in our youth time were seen on the echoing green. Till the little ones weary, no more can be merry. The sun does descend, and our sports have an end. Round the laps of their mother, Many sisters and brothers, like birds in their nest, are ready for rest, and sport no more seen on the darkening green. William Blake. So that is our poem, and that is what we are going to discuss. The first stanza, you may want to note down these points as well. The first stanza, it describes, in fact, a happy morning. It describes about celebration of spring season. And in fact, when we read it, you will find that it creates a very happy mood. I'm going to explain it line by line now. The sun does arise, which means the sun has risen, and it represents that it is morning. We all know that the sun rises in the morning, and when it does that, it makes happy the skies. So when the sun arises, the sky seems to be appearing very happy. The merry bells ring to welcome the spring, and as though to celebrate spring's arrival, the bell seems to be ringing. In fact, the poet here creates a picture of a beautiful morning picture with all these beautiful sounds of bells ringing. The skylark and thrush sing louder around. Now, you may want to underline skylark and thrush. These are two spring birds, and they are very famous, especially because around this time they herald. In other words, when they arrived, it seems as though spring has already arrived. So these two birds signify springtime. They seem to be singing louder around, as though they are in competition with the bells' cheerful sound. I'm sure you have noticed, in fact, here we are now celebrating spring season. And I'm sure you have seen that the plants are turning more green, the flowers are blooming, and bees buzzing. So all these things signifies the activities of spring season. And likewise, the poet has brought in these two songbirds, that is spring birds, skylark and thrush, to give us the picture, the full picture that it is spring season and everything is already creating, everything is a happy picture. You know, the sun rising, it's morning time, and birds are chirping. So these two birds are again very significant. Why? Because these two birds can also, in many other work of literary work, you will find that they represent spring season. And I'm sure you have also noticed it, maybe if you are living near, perhaps near a jungle, or if you go to the forest around this time, maybe you would also have spotted. While our sports shall be seen on the echoing green. So the previous lines, the previous 8 lines, they are just simply creating a happy picture, whereas the next 2 lines, you will find that it's slightly different. While our sports shall be seen on the echoing green. Now, these 2 lines are very important, and the word sports here represents the activities, the active energy of young people, the children playing perhaps, or the active energy of nature, that is spring, or the active energy of morning hour. So all these things are being represented here. And the next line, that is on the echoing green, here, we have already learned about what is echo, and green here is actually representing innocence. Now, you will find that in previous work by William Blake, you will find that he usually publishes his work under 2 types of volumes. One is Songs of Innocence, and the other one is Songs of Experience. So green here represents Songs of Innocence. And so we can say that this poem here is also a part of that innocent period, or happy memories. Now, the second stanza. Old John with white hair does laugh away care. Sitting under the oak among the old folk, they laugh at our play, and soon they all say, such were the joys when we all, girls and boys, in our youth time were seen on the echoing green. Now, I want you to take a look at these the first 2 stanzas, compared it with the first stanza. The mood seems to be changing a little bit. In the beginning, it's such a happy picture, but now it's slightly changing, and we can find out from lines such as, when we all, girls and boys, in our youth time were seen. Now, I'm going to explain from the first line now. Old John with white hair. Old John here, you may want to write down, Old John here may not necessarily be a particular person, but it is representing old people, or perhaps even the poet William Blake in his old age. So Old John with white hair does laugh away care. These old people, they seem to be laughing away at their worries. They no longer have any problems to think about. They were happily laughing away, sitting under the oak. So maybe they are probably in a park, sitting under the oak tree among the old folk. So there are a whole lot of old people around there, and they were talking among themselves, having a good time. Now, it's very rare to find old people sitting together and talking to each other. And whenever I see them, I always wonder, what do you think they keep on discussing? You know, maybe in our context here, they discuss about things that has to do with solving problems or sharing the age-old knowledge with each other and so on. However, the difference that you will find here is that they were talking about happy memories only here. So like I said, this whole poem represents the period of innocence. So they laugh at our play. Now you may want to underline the word they. The pronoun they here is referring to the old people, and underline the word are. The pronoun here is referring to children. So now we are getting a picture of children playing in the park, old people sitting under the oak tree and talking and laughing. And obviously, in a full-packed park, children who are playing, there would be laughter, so happy memories, happy energies that you will find. So that is again the picture that we find here. And soon they all say, in other words, the old people were watching these children playing, and they were talking to themselves or saying to themselves that such were the joys when we all, girls and boys, in our youth time were seen on the echoing green. So they were sitting there watching the children play, and they are remembering their own past when they were younger like those children who were playing and having a good time. So this here, like I said, the mood here changes a little bit. It is changing to those of reminiscing or recollecting, reflecting back on their past and thinking about how they have had a good time. I'm sure you have heard older people, or maybe your elder brother or sister, who goes and relate about their past life and say, oh, we were such very naughty boys, we have done all these and that, you know, and reliving their past in a happy way. So perhaps maybe even these old people were doing the same thing. On the echoing green, like I said, they were reliving their past here. So this word, in fact, this line is actually being repeated twice now in the first two stanzas. These are some of the few points that you need to remember. Stanza 2, points to remember. Old John, referring to old people or even the poet himself. Old people were reminded of their own youthful past. The second stanza also represents a happy recollection of young, youthful days. And it is also about innocent, youthful days. And the mood here is nostalgia, or you can say nostalgic. When you look back and when you reflect back to a past events, that is nostalgia. All right, now the stanza 3. Till the little ones weary, no more can be merry. The sun does descend, and our sports have an end. Round the laps of their mother, Many sisters and brothers, like birds in their nest, are ready for rest, and sport no more seen on the darkening green. So now the third stanza, the whole mood is changing. We are going to find out how that happened. Till the little ones weary. So the children, in the earlier stanzas, we find the children were playing, happily playing and running about perhaps. And now they are tired. No more can be merry. They cannot go on playing anymore because they are very tired now. The sun does descend. In other words, it is already evening time. Remember in the first stanza we were talking something about morning, and now we are talking about sunset, evening time. And our sports have an end. In other words, everything has an end. We will be talking about that a little bit more. Round the laps of their mother, many sisters and brothers, like birds in their nest. So their day's events are already over and they are now ready to go to sleep. They are sitting around their mother's lap, and this gives the poet a picture of little birds who are also ready to go to sleep. Now, with all this, we can now tell that the poet is trying to create a picture where he is trying to give the message that everything has an end. Everything has a beginning, and also everything has an end. Likewise, even children, they are tired of their games now. They are ready to go to sleep. Even nature is also ready to rest. For instance, we can take the examples of little birds in their nest around the evening time. And sport no more seen on the darkening green. So their activities have come to an end, and it is already dark. So here, in the third stanza, the final line here is slightly different, which says, on the darkening green, because it signifies that it is already evening time. All right, now these are the points to remember from stanza 3, points to remember. The children grew tired towards the end of the day. Birds or nature is ready to rest, signifies that everything has an end. Here are some examples. Evening time, darkening green, the cycle of life, nature, etc. We would be talking more in detail about cycle of life as well. So very quickly, the summary of the poem here is celebration. It is all about celebration of the arrival of spring season. It is also the celebration of life and nature. Life cycle. Now, the life cycle, I want you to take a good look at your own poem there, and you will find that from each stanzas you can differentiate these qualities from the stanzas. The first one, the life cycle here, we are talking about day, morning, afternoon, and evening. Remember in the first stanza, the poet is describing a picture of morning, and in the second stanza, we can say that he is giving us a picture of afternoon picture. Why? Because we don't go to parks in the morning. We usually go in the afternoon. So he gives us the picture of those old people sitting under the oak tree in the evening, enjoying themselves and so on. So we have the cycle of afternoon there. And in the third stanza, that is evening. So even the day has a cycle. I'm sure you would agree with that. Morning, afternoon, and evening. And that's how we wrapped up our day's activities. So it has a perfect cycle and it follows that. Now, the second one, season. The poet here is also talking about the cycle of season. In the first stanza, if you can recollect, words like spring, words like birds, singing, bells ringing, and so on. All those things signifies the arrival of spring. So from spring, in the second stanza, we can say that he is giving us the picture of summer day, a hot summer day where old people and young children were playing, old people were watching them in the afternoon and in the summertime. So that's the picture that we get in the second stanza. The next stanza, final stanza, we have autumn, a picture of autumn and winter. We usually end the season with winter. So here, now we are understanding it as the cycle of season. Then the final one and the most important one here is life. If you take a look at the first stanza carefully, he is giving us the picture of young children full of energies, running about, and so on. So life begins with childhood and continues to the youthful days, and we grow old as time goes on and finally comes to old age. So that is the cycle of life. So that is what we are looking at here. On the outer part, the poem seems to be a very simple poem here. But remember, William Blake is one of the genius in the Romantic era, and that is why, even though it appears very simple, he is talking a lot, giving us a lot more about life itself. So here we have 3 cycles: the time, or we can say day, season, and life. For those of you who are tuning in through the radio, I will be giving you this instruction so that perhaps maybe you can also try it at home and understand the core context of this poem better. So when we say cycle of time, day, or season, or for that matter, we can also say life, we can break it down into 3 segments of a circle. So you can draw a perfect circle, cut it into 3 parts. So one part can be your cycle of day, that represents morning, spring, childhood, and the next one, afternoon, summer, youth, and next, evening, autumn, or winter, or old age. So that is what we are talking about here. I'll give you a very quick recapitulation of the poem here. It symbolizes that joys and vitality of the season, life or nature, always have an end. Our sports have an end. The poet kept on repeating that line as well. So everything has an end. The cycle of life has an end. Everything has an end because it follows a cycle of birth and death. For example, young children celebrating the joy of the world eventually grows old, and who sits like old John, perhaps when they grow old and remember his youthful, joyful youth or youthful days. So that is the cycle of life. Now, when we think about it, we get this idea that things get replaced. Even if it has an end, things get replaced. Because from this line itself, it draws our attention to the fact that even if things has an end, we will find that it is being replaced with newer things, or in fact, renew or rebirth. That is what we find here in the cycle of life. All right. The next one now, we would be talking a little bit about the style of the poem here. The style of the poem, like I said, is very simple. The language is very simple. The expression of language is very simple. The poet is not using very deep vocabularies for this poem here, but simple words like old John, laughing away, all those things are very simple, everyday usage. So the poem here is written in a very simple way with very common vocabulary and quick rhyming. With rhyming, we would be discussing it along with the next point, that is structure. When we say rhyming, we cannot do away with talking about the structure. So in the structure, if you take a look at your poem there, you would find that if you count the line, you will find that there are 10 lines in each stanza and only 3 stanzas. So it's very short, so it has that structure. 10 lines with 3 stanzas only, and the rhyming scheme. The rhyming scheme here is A, B, B, C, C, D, D, E, E. So it's very simple. Now we are going to talk a little bit, for those of you who are new to what is a rhyming scheme, we are going to talk a little bit about what is a rhyming scheme here. Now let's take a look at the first stanza here, and I'll give you an example. For instance, the last syllable in the first line, the sun does arise, the word rise. And in the second stanza, the last word, that is skies. And in the third one, ring, spring, thrush, bush, round. We are taking only the last sound of the word here. So here, the whole, around. If we count it, round, there are 2 syllables. So we are taking only the last syllable here. So that's why I'm writing the sound that is the last syllable, round. Scene, green. So you can mark it or underline it in your own text. And when I say the rhyming scheme is A, the first line starts, the first syllable in the first line of the poem always starts with A. So you can mark it as A. The second one, rise, skies. It sounds very similar. So you are going to put the word A again. Supposing the line says that rise, ring, that is completely different. So you will be marking it as B instead of A. But this is repetitive. So quick rhyming, this is what we are talking about here. So ring should be marked as B, spring, B, thrush would be C, bush, it is the same repetitive sound with the first one, thrush, bush, so it sounds similar, so you would go with C again. Round is not the same thing with bush, it's completely different, so you would go with D, sound, round, D, scene, and here would be E. So in that way, this is the rhyming scheme of the poem here, the style of the poem here. I'll give you a very short example, very easy example. I'm sure you are familiar with the nursery rhymes, Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star. So in that nursery rhymes, Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star, the last word, star, or the last sound, star, how I wonder what you are. Star, are. It sounds the same thing. So that scheme is A. How I wonder what you are, up above the world so high, like a diamond in the sky. So high, sky, it sounds the same thing. It has the same sound. So you go with B. So in that way you can mark your rhyming scheme there. So very quickly I'll give you a recapitulation of what this whole poem is about. When you are asked to write about this poem now, I'm sure you'll be able to write it. The summary here is, it's all about celebration of spring season. It's all about celebration of life, all right? The poem is very simple, but it has great depth when it comes to the philosophy behind the poem here. And you will also find that the poet uses a lot of interesting things, to poetic devices, like even the structure of this poem here is very simple but very cleverly done. So that way, on the outer layer, you will find that it's very simple, but again, you will find that it is also it also envelopes the theme of the poem very clearly, that is celebration of spring season. And on that note, we have come to the end of this lesson. I hope you would be able to enjoy this lesson. Thank you all very much.